Angel Reese got caught on camera saying Caitlin Clark got lucky after winning Associated Press and WNBA Player of the Week. Lucky. Because Reese thinks she should have won if she was not out injured. Clark just dropped 45 points and 10 assists in under 30 minutes, broke a WNBA record nobody has ever touched even in the NBA, and won Player of the Week for the second time this year. Reese, meanwhile, hurt her own knee on a missed layup with nobody within 5 feet of her. So let's talk about who actually got lucky here. Because the tape doesn't lie, and neither does the box score. Are you Team Clark, the baby goat, or Team Reese, the baby giraffe? Let me know down in the comments below. 45 points, 10 assists, and the clock barely hit 30 minutes played. Let that sink in for a second because most players need 40 minutes and a fourth quarter miracle to get numbers like that. And Clark did it with time to spare on the bench. Going into the Seattle Storm game, nobody expected history. It looked like just another home game, another tough Western Conference matchup against a Storm team that plays real defense with Twin Towers Dominique Malonga and Awa Pham. Instead, Clark walked away with a stat line that no one, not in the WNBA, not in the NBA, had ever put up before. 40 points and 10 assists in the same game, done by exactly one player in the history of the WNBA, Clark. Put the whole line together, 45 points, 10 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks in one game. Only 4 players in basketball history, NBA or WNBA, have ever recorded a stat line like that. Michael Jordan has done it. So has Dwyane Wade, Luka Doncic, and Cade Cunningham. That's the entire list, and Clark just added her name to it. Here's the part that makes it even crazier. Jordan, Wade, Doncic, and Cunningham all needed 40-plus minutes on the floor to reach that stat line. Clark did it in under 30, and she wasn't finished breaking things. The threes were falling early, step-backs, pull-ups off the dribble, the kind of shots that make defenders just put their hands on their hips. The drives were finishing at the rim instead of getting sent to the floor. And the assists weren't garbage time dimes either. They were live reads, live dribble passes that found Kelsey Mitchell in rhythm off screens and Aaliyah Boston rolling to the rim at exactly the right second. This wasn't a one-game fluke either. Clark also hit the mark for fastest player to 200 career threes, a record that took other great shooters years to reach and took her a fraction of the time. Put those two records next to each other and you start to see a pattern, not a hot night. The step-back three in the second quarter is the one that got the crowd on its feet, pulling up from 28 feet with a hand in her face like it was nothing. Then there's the live dribble dime to Mitchell in transition, no hesitation, just a one-hand delivery that turned into an easy 2. Watch the Fever bench on that possession. Everybody's up, everybody's yelling, because they know what they just watched. Stephanie White wasn't even trying to hide her reaction on the sideline, and by the fourth quarter, the whole Fever bench understood the number on the board wasn't normal. That's the game that turned Player of the Week into a formality instead of a debate. And Seattle was only half of what Clark did that week. The New York Liberty jumped on the Fever early, and for a stretch it looked like the Liberty defense was going to bury them. Breanna Stewart and that Liberty front line were controlling the paint, the crowd was loud, and Indiana looked like a team searching for answers on both ends. This is the part where a lot of teams fold on the road against the defending champs. The Fever didn't. Clark came out of the half a different player, scoring 17 points and dishing out 7 assists after the break alone, which is a full game for most guards packed into 2 quarters. New York started sending 2 defenders at her every time she crossed half court, trying to make someone else beat them. So Clark made the read every time, kicking out to Sophie Cunningham for open threes and finding Aaliyah Boston cutting to the rim when the second defender committed a half second too early. That's the read, a lot of scorers don't make. Clark made it over and over. The fourth quarter is where the game actually got taken away from New York. Clark picked off a lazy cross-court pass for a steal, then rotated over to swat a shot attempt near the rim, and a possession later she pulled up for a three that put the game out of reach. That's the sequence people are going to clip for years: a steal, a block, and a dagger three inside of about 4 minutes. Add it all up and Clark finished with 4 steals and 2 blocks to go with the scoring. And the Fever closed it out 108-88, a game that wasn't within reach by the fourth quarter buzzer. That kind of two-way box score is rare for anybody, let alone a guard who's also running the whole offense. Voters looking at Player of the Week don't just glance at the scoring column, they look at exactly this kind of complete game. The two-way stuff, the fourth quarter execution, the way a star player makes everybody else better under pressure. Clark's Liberty game had all of it: a comeback, a defensive takeover, and a supporting cast that trusted her enough to let her create for them. 2 record-breaking complete performances in the same 7 days made this an easy call for the AP and the WNBA, no debate needed. While Clark was putting together the best week of her season, something very different was unfolding in Atlanta, and it had Angel Reese's name all over it. Remember that quote from the start of the season? Reese called herself the Michael Jordan of the WNBA, out loud, on camera, no hesitation. That quote's been floating around ever since, and this week is exactly why people keep bringing it back up. Start with the Toronto tempo, because that's where the tape gets ugly. Reese lowers her shoulder into Nayara Sabali, catches her right in the ribs, and Sabali goes down in real pain. No whistle, no foul call that matches what actually happened on the floor. And instead of owning it, Reese turns around after the game and calls coach Sandy Brondello a clown for defending her own player, then insinuates Brondello made comments with racial undertones. That situation spirals fast, and it ends with Brondello getting suspended over the whole mess, which means Reese's cheap shot turned into somebody else's punishment. Look at the play, frame by frame, and the angle tells the story. Reese squares up, drops her shoulder early, and drives it into Sabali's side well before the ball gets there, which is the kind of contact referees are supposed to catch and didn't. The league reviewed it after the fact, the tape got passed around, and the contrast writes itself. One night Clark's picking apart a defense with clean, refined reads, and the next Reese is putting an opponent, on the floor with a shoulder to the ribs. Then the Chicago Sky visits the Atlanta Dream, and this one's almost harder to explain. Reese goes up for a routine layup, nothing contested, nobody within 5 feet of her, and comes down grabbing her own knee like she got hit by a truck. Nobody touched her. The broadcast crew is stuck in real time trying to figure out what they just watched, going back and forth because there's no contact to point to, no collision, no explanation that makes sense on a first look or a second one. Time this out against everything else going on. Clark's Player of the Week case is building across every national outlet at the exact same moment Reese is walking off the floor, holding her own knee on a play where nothing happened to her. Bring that Michael Jordan quote back one more time and just sit with it. One player spent the week adding her name to the record book. 45 and 10 in under 30 minutes. Fastest to 200 threes, 2 complete games against real competition. The other spent the week shouldering an opponent into an injury, getting a coach suspended over the fallout, and then exiting her own game on a non-contact injury with nobody around her. However you want to measure it, stats, health, reputation, this stacks up as one of the worst weeks Reese has had in her career. And once Clark's Player of the Week award became official, Reese didn't stay quiet about it, not publicly, but not quietly either. Before we break down what Reese just got caught saying on a hot mic after Clark won her Player of the Week award, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to us. Reese got caught saying Clark got lucky after the Player of the Week news broke, and the context makes it worse, not better. This wasn't some heat-of-the-moment thing said mid-game. It came after, once the award was already announced, once the whole league already knew the numbers. People around her heard it. It spread fast, and it made its way out exactly the way these things always do now because somebody's always got a phone out. Put that comment right next to the box score, and it falls apart on its own. Clark put up 45 points and 10 assists in under 30 minutes, a stat line nobody in the NBA or WNBA had ever produced, and followed it with a 17.7 assists second half against the defending champs. Reese's week ended with a non-contact knee injury on a routine layup. Nobody around her, no explanation on the broadcast. Calling one of those weeks lucky and the other one just bad timing doesn't hold up when you actually look at what happened on the floor. This also isn't new. Reese has had this reaction before, going back to college, going back to the WNBA draft, going back to comments about media coverage and attention that always seemed to land the same way, with Reese framing Clark's success as something handed to her instead of earned. It's a pattern by now, not a one-time slip, and she's not doing this in a clean lane either. The whole Brondello suspension is still floating around in the background, tied right back to Reese's own hit on Sabali, which means controversy keeps following her even in weeks where she's supposedly not the story. That's worth sitting with. A coach lost time over defending a player Reese hurt, and Reese still found a way to make herself the center of attention again, just for a different reason. Fans didn't go easy on the "got lucky" line either. It spread across timelines fast, and instead of sympathy, Reese got ratioed hard, because nobody's buying an injury excuse from someone who spent the same week putting a shoulder into another player's ribs. Compare the two crowds here. Clark and Sophie Cunningham get people rallying behind them, staying composed, letting the play speak for itself. Reese says 4 words, and the reaction is eye rolls and screenshots. Lucky is just the wrong word, plain and simple. Luck doesn't get you through 30 minutes of clean, efficient basketball against 2 different defenses in 1 week. Luck doesn't manage a back injury recovery, control minutes, and still put up a record no one else in either league has ever touched. That takes health, discipline, and a coaching staff trusting you enough to run the offense through you deep into the 4th quarter. If anything, that comment did more for Clark's case than any highlight ever could. And while all this noise was playing out around the award, Clark's business side was quietly having its own record week too. Start with the number, because it is the biggest Nike deal in WNBA history. And that is not a small line item. That is Nike deciding Clark's face and game are worth more than any player who has ever laced up in this league. That kind of number does not get handed out for potential. It gets handed out because a company already ran the numbers on jersey sales, on viewership, on how many people search her name after every game. State Farm did not pick Clark as their first ever female lead endorser because of a highlight reel either. They picked her because of reach and trust, the 2 things that actually move a national ad campaign. Millions of people who do not watch a single other WNBA game all season still know exactly who Caitlin Clark is, and that is the kind of crossover State Farm builds whole campaigns around. Then there is Wilson, and this is the one that lands the hardest given everything Reese said about herself back in the spring. Wilson gave Clark her own signature basketball, and nobody has had one of those since Michael Jordan. Not Kobe, not LeBron, Michael Jordan, and then Caitlin Clark. Sit with that next to the whole "I'm the Michael Jordan of the WNBA" quote, because the actual comparison people are making is not coming from Reese's mouth. It is coming from a sporting goods company putting her name on a basketball. Gatorade's deal adds another record number on top of that, and they did not stop at cash. They built her a signature flavor, Rainberry, sitting on shelves with her name attached, which is the kind of thing companies only do when they are betting on someone sticking around at the top for years. None of this happens in a vacuum. Sponsors watch weeks like the one Clark just had, 45-10 in under 30 minutes, a full second-half takeover against the Liberty, and that is exactly the tape that gets replayed in boardrooms when these deals get renewed or expanded. Forbes and Sportico both have her ranked as the most powerful female athlete on the planet right now, and the highest paid WNBA player once you count everything off the court. That is not just a Fever story anymore. That is a sports business story. And none of it happens without the roster around her buying in. Mitchell spacing the floor, Boston finishing at the rim, Hull locking up the other team's best perimeter scorer. All of it feeds the same trust that shows up in these box scores and, by extension, in every boardroom deciding where ad money goes next. Ratings are backing all of it up too, with cable numbers spiking hard on Fever game nights compared to the rest of the league. The same week that won her Player of the Week also locked in her spot as the most bankable name in the sport. And that version of the Fever is only getting started. Run the tape back one more time. One player put up 45 and 10 in under 30 minutes, a record nobody in the NBA or the WNBA had ever touched, then followed it with a full second-half takeover against the defending champs. The other player hurt an opponent's ribs, got a coach suspended over it, and then went down on her own knee with nobody around her. Clark, Mitchell, Boston, Cunningham, and Hull are already building something bigger than last year's injury scares and cheap shots. Health and discipline built 1 week. Self-inflicted mistakes and a bad comment built the other. Same day, same news cycle. Are you Team Clark, the baby goat, or Team Reese, the baby giraffe? Let me know down in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications as we're bringing you all the action and top stories. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.